Good day, class. So, welcome to Research 11 Methods of Research. We are still here at Unit 2, the problem and its background. And this unit consists of two parts. Part 1 is on research problem, and this is where you will pick a topic and formulate your research problem. And part 2 will be on research writing chapter 1 of your proposal. Now that you have already a topic from your activity 1, we are now ready to formulate your research problem. But before that, let us review what a research problem is. So, what is a research problem? We started with picking a topic instead of the research problem because we are doing things step by step. And the type of research problem you choose depends on your broad topic. That's why it's important you have finished already your activity 2.1.1 before watching this PowerPoint video. So a research problem is a specific issue, difficulty, contradiction, or gap in knowledge that you will aim to address in your research. Your topic is interesting and you have lots to say about it, but this isn't a strong enough basis for academic research. Without a well defined research problem, you are likely to end up with an unfocused and unmanageable project. You might end up repeating what other people have already said, trying to say too much, or doing research without any clear purpose and justification. So you need a problem in order to do research that contributes new and relevant insights. And the research problem is the step towards knowing exactly what you'll do and why you are doing it. So there's a difference between a research problem and a research topic. So what you have in your activity 2.1.1 is a research topic. And this research topic is something that you can read about. It's a broad topic, which could be a basis for your research problem. Research problem is something that is solvable and address gaps in the society. So an example of a research problem, we have two examples here. First is this one, a descriptive study on prevalence of bed sores among unconscious patients admitted in intensive care unit of CVMC Philippines. And another is an exploratory study on contributing factors of maternal mortality in selected rural communities of the 3rd District of Manila. So what are the things that uh, you can see in a research problem? So I'll give you like 5 seconds to think about or digest what are the elements that you see in these examples. So is a research problem the same as research questions? So this is usually the problem or terms that are confusing in research. According to Kerninger, a problem is an interrogative sentence or a statement that has the relation between two or more variables. So a set of research question is generated from the research problem. So you get the research questions or the specific questions from your research problem. And the researcher creates questions based on your knowledge and background on the area under study. And this is where reading related literature comes in handy again, because by reading existing published literature, you get good background knowledge on what already has been discovered. And when creating a research question, it is important to link the problem with the question in a manner that clearly states the need of the research to be undertaken. So it is confusing for some because a research problem can be in a declarative format. It can also be in an interrogative format. So our previous examples of research problems are in declarative format. So in the descriptive study for the ICU unit of CVMC, an exploratory study on selected rural communities. These are in declarative format. And these examples of research problems are in interrogative format or in question form. So, for example, what is the influence of level of hemoglobin on thin site infection among patients with external skeletal fixators admitted in orthopedic wards of CBMC Philippines? And another is, what is the effect of ginger or morning sickness on pregnant women in selected communities in the third district of Cagayan? So now we go to the elements of a research problem. So this is the question I asked in the previous slide. I give you about 5 seconds to think or look at the examples of research problems and look at the elements that are in there. So it is only on careful detailing the research problem that can work out research design and can smoothly carry out all the consequential steps involved while doing research. So an appropriate definition of research problem allows the investigator to be on the right path. Remember, a problem clearly stated is already a problem half solved. If your problem is not clearly stated, you will have a bigger problem on that because you will have to do another research for yourself because this is the hardest part of doing a research, looking for a research problem. So in your handout, we have actually there 5 W's. But the first W for me is a why, which is already this one, which is the whole problem itself. Why are you doing that research? So we have here a why, which is the aim or purpose of the problem for investigation. So why is there an investigation, inquiry, or study? Next, we have a what. You will see that element what. This is the subject matter or topic to be investigated. And this answers the question, what is to be investigated or studied? Next is where. So the place or locale where the research is to be conducted. Where will be the study conducted? Fourth is when. When is actually not applicable to all research problems. Sometimes it is not there, but sometimes it is embedded there, and sometimes it is explicitly stated there in the research problem, especially when you need the time frame. So this is the period of time or the duration by which the data will be gathered. It answers the questions, when will the study be carried out for longitudinal studies, or when or what is the coverage or time coverage of the study. And lastly is who. This is a population from which the data is to be collected. This answers the question who or from whom or who are the respondents or from whom are the data to be gathered. So again, 4 W's, what, where, when, who, and the topic itself, the why. So we have here an example, a descriptive study on prevalence of bed sores among unconscious patients admitted in intensive care unit of CBMC Philippines. This is the first research problem sample from the previous slide. I want you to answer or look at the elements if it has all the elements of a research problem. The topic itself, what, where, when, and who. So I'll give you about 30 seconds to answer that. Okay, so we go to the topic itself or why we are doing this research. So the answer here for the topic is here, your bed source. This is your topic here, the bed source. Now we go to what. What here is your prevalence. Next is where. Where? This is easy. So we cannot say only CVMC Philippines, but specifically the intensive care unit of CVMC. For who, this is also easy. We don't say also patients, but unconscious patients. And is there a when? Remember when is if it's only applicable. If it's not applicable, then we don't force to have a when. So here, the when is already embedded. It says it's a descriptive study, and descriptive research aims to describe or define the topic already at the moment in time. When? At that moment. Okay, so we go to the next example. An exploratory study on contributing factors of maternal mortality in selected rural communities of the 3rd District of Cagayan. Again, I'll give you 30 seconds to think about the 5 Ws or 4 Ws with the topic of this research problem. Okay, so what is the topic? So topic is, yes, that's maternal mortality. And what are the contributing what is already the contributing factors for where? That's easy, the 3rd district of Cagayan. So we have here rural communities, but we specifically say selected rural communities. And for when here is also embedded for an exploratory study. This is research usually conducted when a researcher has just begun an investigation and wishes to understand the topic general to explore. So it starts with when the researcher starts the investigation, and we can go deeper either backwards, retro or prospective. Okay, next activity is which is a good research problem. So I want you to choose from these 3 samples which is a good research problem. I'll give you only 15 seconds for that. Okay, so which ones of these are is a good research problem? So the first option, what are the effects of video games on society, is actually too broad. We want to know what effects are we looking for and on who are these effects of video games for. For the second option, do video games contribute to bad behavior? So again, what bad behavior and on who? So for this slide, this is the good research problem. So here you will see it states the why we are doing the research. We are looking at video games. What about? So violence. Where we can put there, we can add Philippines. It's not that complete yet, but it's already under good research problem. Who? So we say children. And when we can add here for the last 10 years. So our children in the Philippines who play video games more likely are to be violent in the last 10 years, something like that. The next example is another slide like that. I'll give you 15 seconds. You have option one, two, and three, which is a good research problem amongst the three. Okay, so we start with the last one. How will the aftermath of divorce affect humanity? So this is not a good research problem because it is too broad. What aspect of divorce affect humanity and who is affected? Humanity is too broad. For the second option, this is also not a good research problem because we are looking at what effect, okay, what effect does divorce have on children? So, what effect are you looking for? So, the first option is the best option because it states already what effect. So, how does divorce influence children's social development? So, we look here, we have the what on social development. We have the topic divorce. We have who for the children. So if we are to complete this research problem, we can say that how does in the Philippines, how does divorce influence children's social in the Philippines for years 2015 to 2020? How does divorce influence children's social development? We have a last example. I'll give you again 15 seconds, which is a good research problem. We have one, two, three options here. This is a little tricky compared to the first two examples that we had. Okay. So actually the previous class, your PH 3A said that it's just a paraphrase. So they cannot choose one of them said it's hard to choose because it seems to be paraphrased. But then he or she also realized that it's not paraphrased. So for option number one, how does trash pollute the environment? So this is too broad because what kind of trash are we looking for? For the second option, this is close enough. What is the impact of bottled water on the environment? It seems to be a good research problem already. But what aspect of bottled water? What aspect of bottled water are we looking for? We have different types of bottled water. So this research problem is uh, the best amongst the three because it states here already the plastic water bottles, which is the topic itself. What about it? The environmental impact and Actually, there's a missing a missing part here, the who. But if we are to complete this research problem, we will say that for the community of Tuguegarao City, what is the environmental impact of plastic bottles um, for for the last 5 years? Or if it is more complete for the community of Tuguegarao City living near disposal sites, what is the environmental impact of plastic water bottles for the last 5 years? So there is another technique in crafting your research problem, especially if your research problem is an association study or intervention study. Association study meaning you associate one variable to another variable. For example, using of orange highlighter makes memorization easier. So there are two variables there, memorization and the use of uh, orange highlighter. For intervention studies, uh, it's also in intervention studies, the use of green highlighter. Intervention studies usually have you have a control, you intervene, the use of an orange highlighter and the use of a green highlighter affects memorization um, time, for example. So that's intervention. So this is what we call the PICOT. So elements of a research problem. P stands for patient or population. I for intervention being evaluated. C for comparator or control. And O for outcome or effect of interest. And T again, if applicable only, this is a time period. So again, PICOT, only for association or intervention studies. So this is an example, and I want you to tell me what are the elements of the research problem in PICOT. So again, we first ask ourselves, can we use the PICO or PICOT format here? So, does telemonitoring blood pressure in urban African Americans with hypertension improve blood pressure control within the 6 months of initiation of the medication? So you will see there already, there's an intervention. They are using an intervention. So for the population here, it's urban African Americans with hypertension. So don't forget, those only with hypertension. It's important to be specific here. For your intervention, what's the intervention? It's telemonitoring of blood pressure. So your control is not stated most of the time, but it is implied. Our intervention is telemonitoring of blood pressure. Control here is no telemonitoring of blood pressure. For the outcome, so you will see here improved or improvement in blood pressure control. That's the outcome. And for the time element, you can see here already 6 months, 6 months of initiation of the medication, 6 months. So here another example. I want you to try to answer this in the pickup format, and I'll give you 15 seconds for this. Okay. So the research problem is among critically ill COVID-19 patients with acute respiratory distress syndrome, is ECMO alone or combined with mechanical ventilation compared to mechanical ventilation alone effective in improving survival? So for the population here, we have here the among critically ill COVID-19 patients. So this is critically ill COVID-19 patients. That is your population. For your intervention, you have actually two interventions here. Is ECMO alone or ECMO combined with mechanical ventilation? So you have two interventions, ECMO and ECMO plus mechanical ventilation. So what is your control here? It is explicitly stated here compared to mechanical ventilation alone. So control here is mechanical ventilation. And outcome, of course, is improved survival or survival. For the time element, you don't have any time element here. So don't push, no time element for this research problem. So for your activity 2.1.2, remember that your activities, you have four research topics, uh, four for every, so one for every group member. So what elements of a research problem should be present for the research problem to be significant? You draft first your research problem. You draft it using this technique or for the 5W technique or the PICOT technique if your research topic and converted to research topic is an association or an intervention study. You can use the PICOT format or you can use these 5Ws. So for my previous example last time in education, if I convert it, this is my working research topic there. How does biochemistry laboratory at home module affect understanding, attitude, and skills? I wanted to convert it into a research problem. So I use these 5Ws. My Y is, my topic is on biochemistry laboratory at home module. And what about it? I want to see the effect on the understanding, attitude, and skills of who the students, when, during the pandemic, and where universities in the Philippines. So this is my cheat sheet in crafting my research problem. So what then is my research problem as a whole? So how does biochemistry laboratory at home module affect students in the universities in the Philippines, students understanding attitude skills in the universities in the Philippines? So I already have my students there. I already have my understanding attitude and skills. I have the universities in the Philippines. So I can insert here during the pandemic. So again, how does biochemistry laboratory at home module affect students' understanding, attitude, and skills in the universities in the Philippines during the pandemic? So next we look at what are the characteristics of a research problem. So this is more of a checklist, and that is why you have to do your activity 2.1.1 prior to this lesson. So you check if the problem is stated clearly and concisely. You say you can have a check mark here or yes, it is stated clearly and concisely. Second, can research questions be generated from the problem? Yes. For my case, yes. I can make specific or small questions out of the general problem. Third, is it grounded in theory? Again, in the other section, I said I will have to um, cancel this first. Do not answer this part because I will make another lesson or lecture on the theories. Fourth is it relates to one or more academic fields of a study. Yes, for me, it relates to biochemistry. Then it has a base in research literature. For me, yes, because When I did my activity 1.2.1.1, I read some literature. So it is based actually in research literature. It has a potential significance or importance. It's a yes for me. It's important or significant during the pandemic and even after the pandemic. Because I have an instructional material product after the research. Is it doable within the time frame budget? For me, it's a yes, because I can do it in one sem, and budget wise, not much of an expense in doing a module, including the validity and the completion of it. Sufficient data are available or can be obtained. It's a yes for me. Me being a teacher, I am handling biochemistry classes. I can have my students use my module and assess their understanding before and after the use of the module. The researcher's methodological strengths can be applied to the problem. For me, yes, because I am the researcher, I am a teacher, and I teach biochemistry, and I have all the training in doing researches. So that's why you need to be trained to be uh, have a yes here. So lastly is the problem is new. It is not already answered sufficiently. You can say yes here. You check first the internet again using your new research problem if it's already a done research. If it's already done, then it's a no. And this you need already to redo or find another research problem for you. So for activity 2.1.2, you need to assess or have a self check of your research problems. So this is again for every group you have four research topics for your activity 2.1.1. So from that four research topics you have for your activity 2.1.2, number one, four research problems from that research topics. And for number two, you self-check those research topics, research problems using these statements. So what are the criteria in the selection of a research problem? So criteria is also again more of a checklist. For number one, it's professional significance. This means significance to the discipline. So a problem is significant for a discipline when it is directed to develop or refine the body of professional knowledge. For you as public health students, does it define or develop your professional knowledge as a public health uh, worker in the future? So this criteria it assess the significance to the discipline. For example, does the stakeholders or the community benefit from the research findings? Does the result will the result improve current practice for public health profession? Will it promote theory development or testing? Or will it provide solutions to current practice needs? Or will it generate information to get practical implications for the public health profession? So number two is originality. So every new research should be new and unique in itself. So actually it's one criteria of your research problem, which must be new. So it is your responsibility as the researcher that innovative knowledge is used for selecting a research problem so as to extend the growth of existing body of knowledge in a profession. So next is feasibility. So a research should be feasible in terms of time, availability of subjects, facilities, equipment, money, and ethical considerations. So for time, is it feasible for one semester or 4 months? Availability of subjects, are there um, are there students during that time? For my case, or are there um mothers who have who are smoking available for your for your research facilities, for example. Do you have this machine for your research? Money, just like what I said in the other group, uh, for the MLS defenses, they are very willing to uh, spend for their experimental studies. And lastly, ethical considerations. So ethical considerations, will you be performing tests on people or on animals? Will you be asking human participants to participate? Fourth is available support or administrative support. So this includes financial and psychological support, which is essential to conduct a research. Financial, you don't have to spend so much for your research actually, but all experimental researches, you need to shell out money for uh, researches to be really good. It's the impact or the utilization that counts. What for is the research? So, for example, during pandemic, all the researches that are really um, winning at that time is those that are COVID uh, COVID researches, COVID for the treatments, for the handling of effects of COVID, for the healthcare workers, for the community, etc. So next is availability of subjects. This is, I think, covered also in feasibility. The availability of subjects should be well ensured in advance already. So, for example, you are looking at polio cases in 2015. We have zero polio cases. So at that time, you don't have subjects available. Next is researchers' competency. So a research problem can only be feasible if it is in accordance with the researcher's competence. So a researcher should be capable to handle a given research problem. For example, you have a research problem that you have to create um, a machine, a robot. As a public health students and in public health profession, we don't really do robots. So also do applications. You can do this by collaborating with engineers or collaborating with IT experts. But you, as public health workers within yourselves, cannot actually do that research and not competent enough to do that research. Next is ethical considerations. So the research problems selected should be cleared by the ethical committee without undue hurdles. And a very important topic of research cannot be considered feasible until and unless it is in accordance with ethical guidelines. So ethical considerations, we already have an institutional ethics board, and we have also the region 2 trauma medical center where we have our ethics clearance that is already an accredited uh, ethics review board. So next, it is current. So current, a good research problem must be based on current problems and needs of the profession. So that boils down again to my example with the polio. So in 2015, it is not current. It's not a current problem at that moment. And during the pandemic, it is current. The COVID-19 is current. So that is a good research problem, actually. So next is interesting. So our research problem must be as per motivation of the researcher, and it should be fascinating to the researcher. That's why I told you in your previous activity, you choose topics that are interesting to you. So our research will be conducted with full enthusiasm and not merely for accomplishment or like this subject. So it must be interesting to you even after you are done with your research subject. Lastly, it must be relevant. So the research problem chosen should be relevant to the profession, time, need, and competency of the researcher. So actually, these relevant criteria already encompasses some of the criteria from uh, these parts. So for your activity 2.1.2 number 2, I want you to evaluate your research problems. So remember, you have each group mate have a research topic, hence a research problem for number 1. So uh, you will have 4 of these in your submission. So you will rate your research problem. Then your group mate one's research problem, group mate two, group mate three. So remove group mate four because you are only four in the group. So you score five if their topic is excellent. You score four if it's very good, three if it's good, two if it's fair, and one is a four if it is poor. So this part of activity is again another self-check for you and your group mates. So after you have evaluated the research problems, the next task that you need to do is to justify the one with the most points, not with the one with most points. You need to justify your research problem. So again, this is per research problem and you have four research problems in the end. So the following are the guide questions and it needs to be helpful. It's answerable with a yes or no. So is the problem current and timely one? Is it pervasive or widespread? So I will have my own research problem justified. Is the problem current and timely one? For me, yes, here. During the pandemic, it is current and timely. Is it pervasive or widespread? Yes, because students at that time are not in school and cannot do laboratory works. Does it affect a special group of people, such as monitoring, etc.? Yes, for me, those are the students having biochemistry subjects. Does it relate to any ongoing programs or projects, such as land reform, drug abuse prevention, family planning, etc.? Yes, it relates actually to the ongoing program of hybrid education at that time. Next, it's literally to broad social, economical, and health issues. Yes, issues on health issues and educational issues. Who else is concerned about the problem? Top government officials, medical doctors, or other professionals? For me here, like dep ed, uh, CHED are concerned about the problem. What are its direct and indirect, short and long range contributions to the welfare, to the community or the whole society? So you can answer that fully. So for your justification, I want you to answer also this for your activity 2.1 point is 1 2.1.2. So in summary, for the whole of your unit 2.1, you learned how to pick a topic. You learned what is a research problem, its elements. If you remember the box, um, 5Ws, and even the PICO format or PICOT format, the characteristics of a research problem. We have a full checklist on this. Then how do we formulate your research problem? You have your checklist again here, criteria in choosing. And we have your number one, professional significance. And justification, we also have a guide here, guide questions on formulation of your research problems. So that's it for Unit 2.1. Thank you for watching.